Pine Knots, 2:16. All morning trying to convince B she should apply for the NEA grant. Well, I'd have to tell him about my disability. I might just jump up and die on him. Then, on second thought, with a doubtful grin, part fun, part apprehension, maybe they'd feel like I cheated them. As if the match of a thought, flickering with both, were struck in the dark behind her eyes, and the creases which net them in could be erased, smoothed with the back of her hand as she sweeps back her hair and goes off into a memory. When I was in the house with the pine knots, waiting for my daddy to come in from Glade, the walls of this house were sawmill pine with red knots in them, and toward the west, when the late sun come in, the weather side, some paper which my mother pasted there had curled down from the rain washing out the flour. Some days, when I was alone in the house, with my mother out at work, washing, my daddy gone to Glade, and Flo in school, I'd sit there by myself and look at the sun glowing through these red whorls, through the cracks in the knots. The tiniest sunbeams would poke through like straight pins, darting gleams on the wall behind me. They were so colorful. They turned pink, red, purple, laid on with the sun behind the vineyard ridge. And behind me, where the light hit, spreading the floating pinpoints, there was this picture in color. My mother tore it out of a catalog and glued it to the wall with flour paste. It was an old kangaroo sitting alone in a clearing with dead stumps and a few dead fallen trees, maybe in Africa. Fallen, you know, not failed, ragged, broke off wild-like. I used to look at that picture and imagine myself in it, with the clearing and the forest all around. Then, one day, I was in the stomach or the pouch of it. Even though nobody had ever told me kangaroos had pouches, I was inside it. I couldn't see nothing, and it was oozy in there, and the kangaroo was hopping. I didn't know they hopped, but it was hopping over some logs. Then I was spilt out onto the floor, outside it, looking up at it again. I liked to look at pictures that were spacious. It got so I could look into them. I could lose myself in them, and things would happen. But there was something scary about it, too, because I'd get sucked into them all at once before I knowed it, like when the kangaroo took me up into its greasy stomach pouch and hopped me over the dead logs. But even this helped me. Being scary-like made it easier to get in. I don't know why. Till finally I didn't have to look at pictures. I'd study the moon, the clouds. I'd look at the rainbow with all the space around it. Then I'd be on it. I'd be at the top of the rainbow, like on a sliding board, and at the bottom end of it, down where I was sliding, there'd be this giant, and the colors would be going into his mouth, where the pot of gold was. They'd all be gliding down, down, down to where he'd be gobbling them in, gobbling and getting ready for me. Then whoa, right before I got into his mouth, this funny little green man, I couldn't explain him. I didn't know where he come from, this little feller. He just appeared, like, out of nowhere, and stick a pair of wings on my back, and there I'd go, up to the top again. I'd feel myself up there, again, hovering like, on wings, and the space, the drop off, the height of it. But if I kept on looking, I'd start sliding down, down. It got so I could repeat this without the rainbow. It'd come to me on its own, but I'd practice it till I got so I could call it back, the space of it. I'd study it, you see, like I done my clay. These weren't dreams, but they were like dreams. Daydreams, you know, how they'll pop into mind. But it got to where I could have it when I wanted to. Make myself get up there, if there was a cloud or something to focus on. Like thunder clouds crossing the mountains with the sun on them, when they'd left the holler, when that was the only place the sun was. I'd be up there, slithering down them, getting to the peak of them, and sliding down, gliding down, coasting down, in space. Got to where I could call it up even inside, when I was alone. It was a comfort if I didn't have nothing else to do. Or in the wintertime, after we'd come back from sledding, me and Flo, from hauling the wood in, with the red knots glowing like coals in the planks, and the wind blowing in from the mountains, and my daddy back again, trailing in from town, around the hill, behind the house, home.